The American Bar Association, a conglomerate of American attorneys, have penned a letter to the Senate and basically trying to tell them ways that they can infringe upon our rights the way that they've been doing it for 60 years. Sit by and watch this episode of Guns and Gadgets if you want to stay in the know of how they're trying to screw us with more gun control. Hey everybody, welcome back to Guns and Gadgets, your premier source for Second Amendment news. Video number 2 again today, another day with multiple videos. Guys and gals, there's just so much going on. It is mind-boggling and extremely frustrating for all of us, I'm sure. I'm going to give you a rundown here about this letter that was sent to the Senate by the American Bar Association, and I want to hear your comments down below. We'll put it here on the screen. This was actually penned a couple days ago. This was sent to Richard Durbin, who is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the United States Senate, as well as Chuck Grassley, who's the ranking member. And this is about the ABA's support for legislative steps to reduce gun violence. Dear Chairman Durbin and Ranking Member Grassley, on behalf of the American Bar Association, the largest voluntary association of attorneys and legal professionals in the world, I write to commend the Senate Judiciary Committee for conducting a hearing on March 23, 2021 on constitutional and common sense steps to reduce gun violence. While the hearing occurred in the wake of the mass shootings in Boulder and Atlanta, the deadly parade of gun violence continues unceasingly in our urban communities. There is no refuge because gun violence occurs everywhere. Our streets, our schools, our workplaces, our houses of worship, and our homes. While firearm homicides understandably dominate our public conversation on gun violence, firearm-related suicides and accidental firearm deaths are also rising. About 40,000 Americans a year die from gun violence, including homicides, suicides, and unintentional shootings. But this staggering death toll is not inevitable. Indeed, no other developed nation has more than a fraction of our mass shootings or overall gun deaths. Fortunately, there are proven solutions, consistent with the Second Amendment, that says shall not be infringed, that can be legislated and implemented quickly. Over the course of the last 6 decades, the ABA has adopted many nonpartisan and evidence-informed policies aimed at curbing the scourge of gun violence in America. In recent years, we have worked closely with leading national health organizations to call for evidence-informed actions to address gun violence as a public health crisis. There is no one solution to this stubborn public health crisis, but we offer the committee the following recommendations as a meaningful starting point based on ABA policy. Number 1, background checks. And before I jump into this, background checks, whether they be called universal or expanded or extended, do nothing to stop crime. You cannot legislate the evil in the heart or minds of a human, nor can you background check that evil intent. Sorry. The ABA supports universal background checks. Where current federal law only requires background checks for guns acquired from a federally licensed dealer, a significant percentage of firearms are obtained through private unlicensed sales. Research suggests that firearms obtained through private sales are disproportionately used in criminal activity. With an investment in a more robust national instant criminal background check system and the closing of the Charleston loophole, these unlicensed sales and transfers would not be permitted to proceed without the benefit of background checks. These modest efforts would help keep firearms out of the hands of individuals too dangerous or untrustworthy to possess them. Most crime is done with stolen guns. Liability and enforcement. The ABA believes civil remedies and administrative enforcement both play important roles in preventing gun violence. Accordingly, we support repealing the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which grants broad immunity to gun dealers and manufacturers. Additionally, the ABA supports greater capacity and enforcement authority for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. For years, the Bureau has faced chronic funding shortages that hamper its effectiveness in fulfilling its organizational mandate. Increased funding could support enhancements including personnel to keep pace with the rapid growth in firearm purchases and investments in technologies such as modern software to collect and analyze data. Gun violence restraining orders. A gun violence restraining order, or red flag law, if you are not familiar with them, very unconstitutional, is a simple legal unconstitutional procedure to enable state and local courts to temporarily remove guns from those who are proven likely to do harm to others or themselves, and to do so in compliance with the Second Amendment and due process protections of the Constitution. Lies. The ABA urges federal support for widespread adoption and implementation of these initiatives. Safe storage. Safe storage laws are a constitutional means to protect the public from preventable suicides, tragic accidents, and the theft of firearms, which later may be used in criminal activity. The ABA urges federal, state, local, territorial, and tribal governments to enact statutes, rules, and regulations that define the requirements of safe storage of a firearm, require firearm owners to meet those requirements, and promote safe storage education for firearms owners. Armed intimidation. Just last month, the ABA adopted a policy urging federal, state, local, territorial, and tribal governments to enact statutes, rules, and regulations to prohibit the possession and display of firearms by persons other than governmentally authorized military, law enforcement, or security personnel at locations where legislative debate is conducted or where elections occur in order to prevent violence, avoid impacts on public health and safety, and ensure that armed intimidation does not disrupt or discourage open, robust debate on public issues or interfere with the electoral processes critical to the functioning of our democracy. While this policy was adopted after the events of the U.S. Capitol on January 6th of 2021, it was developed and submitted well before then, in light of the emergence of armed intimidation around elections and public meetings. As you can see, the ABA takes seriously its role to defend our democracy and protect the rule of law. The ABA is confident that implementing these proposals would withstand constitutional scrutiny, because we're the attorneys and we're not going to fight you on it because we don't care about the Constitution. The Supreme Court, in the District of Columbia v. Heller of 2008, concluded that Second Amendment rights are not unlimited. In his opinion for the majority, Justice Antonin Scalia wrote that the Second Amendment should not be understood as conferring a right to keep and carry a weapon whatsoever, in any manner whatsoever, and for whatever purpose. While federal courts since Heller have occasionally struck down some outlier laws on Second Amendment grounds, in the vast majority of cases, they have upheld a broad range of firearm regulations as constitutional, consistent with Heller. These critical laws save lives. It has repeatedly been demonstrated that states with evidence-informed constitutional firearm laws have a lower rates of gun violence. On behalf of the American Bar Association, I strongly urge you to consider these proposals that would help address our gun violence crisis. If we can provide you or your staff with additional assistance in this process, please contact Holly Cook in the ABA's Governmental Affairs Office at 202-662-1860 or holly.cook@americanbar.org. Sincerely, Patricia Lee Rafo, or Rafo, President, and this was sent to the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. All right, guys, so I am not an attorney, but I have worked in the area that attorneys work for a quarter of a century, and I think that qualifies me to give my opinion. So we'll go first off with background checks. And I've already said my piece on background checks. Background checks do not prevent crime, period. The second part, liability and enforcement, a lot of that falls on you, the attorneys, and you, the prosecutors, and the judges. For way too long, we have been too soft on violent crime. Hold some people accountable for a change, and you'll get more violent criminals off the streets. That's the way it works. If the enforcement is seen as a joke, then people aren't really deterred from doing what they're doing. The next one was gun violence restraining orders. The red flag law is the most unconstitutional law surrounding anything related to the Second Amendment that we've ever seen. You lose your Second Amendment right, they take your guns for, and oftentimes, an accusation that can be made on a whim that isn't verified or investigated. You don't get to know who your accuser is in most of these scenarios. You have a judge just strip you of your rights and you weren't even found guilty of a crime. You can't lose any other rights as an American unless you are found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And due process is void in the red flag scenario. You aren't found guilty of anything. Just somebody can say, I think that person's dangerous and you should take his guns. It's that easy. So all of the attorneys in the ABA are represented by this letter saying, yes, let's violate people's rights without due process. The next one on the list was safe storage. There are people who are for it, there are people who are against it. My belief is that responsible gun owners are responsible with their firearms, and it's not my job to tell them what to do in their own home to be responsible with their tools. Enough said. The next one was armed intimidation. If you are a politician who sees people who are lawfully assembled, carrying lawful items, whether it be a firearm or a camera battery, if you're intimidated by that, chances are it's because you are doing something wrong and you have a guilty conscience. It's not the people's problem that their politicians are corrupt and crooked. Lastly, you saw on the screen who to contact when it comes to the ABA. Maybe reach out to them and let them know that you're not too keen on the Association of Attorneys, the American Bar Association, the largest of volunteer attorneys in the world, to outright, on paper, say violate the rights of an American. Guys and gals, I will leave the rest to you. Please consider liking and subscribing and sharing this video. It absolutely helps this channel a tremendous amount, especially since they just keep shadow banning. Like I said earlier today, 45% is the number that the views are down, so I need you all to maybe help out with that. Liking the video takes a second, goes a long way. Sharing the video takes another second, goes a really long way as well. Comment down below, tells the anti-gun algorithm here on YouTube and Google that people actually dig this and they might put it in front of more people. And don't forget to smash that subscribe button down below. Guys and gals, I'm on to the next one. Until we see each other again, be safe, stay vigilant, carry a weapon, and take care.